Hello, everyone, and welcome to Authentic You. I'm SeaJay Leapshire, the co-lead pastor of Jesus Culture, Sacramento, with my husband, Banning Leapshire. You might have heard of him.
I have never heard of him.
Oh, I'll introduce you later.
Right. Well, I am Erika Myberg, Jesus Culture's operations pastor. And between us, I think that's just a fancy word for anything facilities.
Like a janitor?
Yes, or a broom and a vacuum cleaner.
Or a mom.
Or a hammer.
Or a mom. That's a good one.
Right? And I'm Deborah Giles, director of the Jesus Culture School of Leadership. If you'd like to learn more information, please visit jcsl.online.
Oh, and her husband are killing it leading JCSL. We've got testimonies out the door from this year. You guys, we are so excited for you to hear this conversation with one of our friends. It's good. It's real. We only invite people on that we like. So I hope you enjoy. Welcome back to Authentic You, everyone. I'm SeaJay Leapshire. I am here with Erika Myberg.
Hello.
And Deborah Giles.
That's right.
I've been working very hard. I know her last name, but I say it wrong every time. And we are honored today to have Sheri Silk with us, so it's going to be fun. You guys better be prepared to be moved deeply by our nonsense. No. I was going to tell you, Sheri, I have recently been Google searching how to dominate a dominant duck. So I have a duck named Gene, who I love, and he became a dad duck last year. And number one, he was a very bad dad duck because within 3 days, he was literally biting their heads. I had to remove the baby ducks away from Gene. He had to live with the chickens, and he would just stare up at the baby ducks. But if I let him be around, he would pick them up by their heads. But ever since then, if I feed the ducks, if I go near Gene, he bites my legs.
Oh.
So I am now doing research on how to dominate my dominant duck. And have you ever succeeded in dominating a duck, Sheri?
We have one female duck right now that thinks she's a chicken. So we probably have 30 chickens. And this duck was raised with, like, ducks sleep on the ground, not in the roost. This duck sleeps in the roost. It's very funny. She's really confused. But we had a male duck for a while, Piper, Penny and Piper. And Piper was super protective of Penny, the female. And so anyone that came near her, he felt like he was mostly just quacking. But we have a 120-pound livestock dog.
Okay.
Because we have 11 goats and 30 chickens and all that. So he's a big dog. And we had Piper, and Piper would take on my livestock dog.
Yes.
Oh.
Wow.
And so I won't go into great detail, but any soft flesh that our livestock dog had, Piper attacked.
Oh, so nice of Piper.
You can imagine he was not, our dog's name's Winston. But I came home one day and I looked out in the field, and Winston has Piper's head sticking out this side of his mouth and his body hanging down out the other side. And I was like, oh my gosh, Winston. And he drops Piper. And Piper just gets up and shakes it off. Like Winston had finally just reached his max with Piper. But he didn't kill him. He just, every once in a while, I'd see his big, huge paw on top of Piper's head. But no, Piper never was a friendly duck. He ended up, I think, a tragic death of sorts by a coyote or something. I don't know. I'm sorry, all the animal lovers that are listening.
Oh, they'll be okay. They've heard me talk about farm animals are farm animals. I love them, but they are what they are. Well, that's interesting because Gene, so one of the things I read was that I basically need to bite him back with my fingers. I'm not like pinch him back, which I'm like, what? I'm going to like pinch my duck back. But then Harley, our dog, because he does the same thing to Harley, pinned him down and had his mouth over Jean's neck, just pinning him on the thing.
Oh.
But Jean's not very smart, so he hasn't learned.
He still does it.
I'm going to pin him down with my mouth, I think. I'm just going to.
It's the food chain. It's
Yeah.
the circle of
You need to tell Banning that he has to pin him down with his mouth, not his hands. Just tell him.
Banning,
and then
you
get your
have to-
camera.
You need to dominate Jean. And Sheri told me that this is what you should do. You just hold him onto the ground with your mouth. Okay.
It has to be a male. A man has to do this.
Okay. I'll tell him and I'll let you guys know how it goes.
Please do.
When they said you had to pinch your duck back, I was like, it's like what they always said when your kids were biters.
Right.
They're like, bite them back. But I always was
But it's an animal.
like, wait. And it never really worked for my kids, the whole bite them back
No.
thing. For my kids, they were like, awesome.
This is a
This is what
game.
we do. We just
Yeah.
all bite each other. Great. I was like, wait, that didn't work. Do I need to make them bleed?
my daughter, who you all know, I dropped her off at daycare one time, a new daycare, and she was probably 15 months old or something. And we were living in Reading. And I went to pick her up, and they said, she is no longer allowed here. She's kicked out of because she bit a baby. There was a little innocent baby in a little carrier on the floor, and my little 15-month-old went over, bent over, and broke the skin.
Oh, wow.
Brittany was dominating. Maybe
Early
it was
on.
a little boy Piper or whatever. Brittany had to dominate by biting. I don't know.
Ellie, really quick, in kindergarten, she had just won like the best student of the school. There was 2 awards they give out every year, and a kindergartner never gets it. But she was so wonderful. She got this award. And we were like, oh my gosh, Banning and I were like, we have raised a winner. Like, look at this. And the next week we get a call from her teacher. Like, you need to come in. She's in the office. And I'm like, what? And I go in, and a little girl had told her that she wasn't going to invite her to her birthday party. So Ellie hucked a loogie in her face and walked away. I was all, what? What? She spit on her? Like, just spit on a girl for not inviting her to her birthday. I was all, I don't think that's going to work.
No.
I don't think it's going to get you invited next year.
I don't think that's going to work for you, super student. Super student. I think they revoked the award.
Kindergartners have no brains.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That was like, what in the world just happened to us? And then, you have more kids and you wise up too. That's the first of many things that will humiliate you in life.
Brace
But-
yourself.
Yes.
Brace yourself.
Yes. Well, Sheri's known all of us for quite a while. She's known me longer because I'm the winner.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
But she likes me the most. No. Just kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh, but so we've walked through lots of different seasons with, gosh, I knew you when your kids were younger and now they're old, and you've been a friend, a leader, a mentor in my life. So it's an honor to have you here and just share with us your last season. You were diagnosed with cancer, which for all of us women, it's like you imagine. All of us put ourselves in that spot. You can't help it. So we would just love to know, you are one of the strongest people I know, and you don't take things laying down. So to hear how you have walked through this.
Oh, thanks. It's funny because most people would look at me and say, you don't look like you have cancer. You look really strong. And I'm thankful for that. But it's hard. Cancer is a horrible word, and it just shakes us to our core. And so for me, the journey really was, I went and got a mammogram, which we're on a ladies podcast here. Mm-hmm. And 2 days later, they called me and said that you were all clear, see you in a year. And about 2 days after that, I found a lump under my armpit. So they completely missed it in the mammogram. So I tell ladies to you could get your mammogram, but there's also, I would get ultrasounds. In fact, ultrasounds don't cause radiation on your body like a mammogram. And they can look for lumps that way as well. So after we found the lump in my armpit, I found it in my breast. So I was considered stage 1B, meaning it had moved to my lymph nodes under my arm on the right side. And so obviously horrible day, biopsy, all that waiting, and then kicked me right into chemo. I was just going over the timeline. I had chemo. This was the beginning of 21, February of 21. In fact, it was Valentine's Day that I got my mammogram. Danny was out of town. And so what do you do when your husband's out of town on Valentine's Day? Just go get a mammogram.
Yeah. A little date with yourself.
Yeah. So by April and May, I was in full IV chemo, lost my hair. My friend Benny Johnson passed away from cancer the night before my mastectomy, which was in July. So it was just a really rough season. And I think you just feel so powerless in the process because you're trusting the medical world. And by then we'd had COVID. And so there was a little bit of, for me anyway, I'm in a system now that I don't completely trust. And I think I learned right away that the medical world has some great things about it, but they have 3 solutions for cancer, which is chemo, radiation, and surgery. That they've been doing the same exact thing for 50 plus years. And that's what they're trained in. So they don't, unless you go outside of the normal Western medicine, you won't get any kind of alternative ideas or suggestions because they actually legally can't advise you something that they're not trained in, which I understand. So I had 3 surgeries in 7 months and rounds of chemo and all of that. And then the worst happened, which was July of last year. They said it's moved to your lymphatic system. So that was probably one of the worst days of my life. I had to, Danny and I cried when they called us. And then my adult children were home. And so telling my adult children was probably one of the worst possible. I mean, telling young children, you kind of buffer young children, but for adults, you're like, this is what they're saying. And so to watch my adult children sob their faces off as we all cried in the driveway, super bad day.
Yeah.
But what happens is, in my opinion, and I have to be careful because I'm not anti-medicine, but I don't think the medical world has a right to tell me how long I have to live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's up to you. So anytime I would get something news that wasn't it's not fake, but I would say, well, that's what they say. But what do you say, Lord? Like, let's partner together. And I talk to my body. I say, hey, you got sick and you can get well. Like it goes both ways here. And hey, immune system, you need to kick up and be awesome. And you're strong and you can do this, and mental fitness. And I go to the gym 4 days a week, and I'm just March, I had my labs done and my cancer marker number has gone from 98 to 52. It needs to be in the 35 range. So it's going in the right direction. I feel really great. And I am still doing some Western medicine and some alternative type medicine. But I think when you asked me about this last season, I think I just learned so much about fear.
Yeah.
Wow.
I learned so much about what it is and what it isn't, and what I can control, and how fast can I get from feeling so powerless to feeling like I have some sense of control over my life and what's happening. Instead of happening to me, I'm actually leaning in for solutions. And if you know me, I have 6 brothers, and I kind of come out swinging. That's how I survived. This is no different. But when I think of that scripture where, our enemy prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking who he can devour, that roar, if a lion walked in here right now and roared, it's scary. It's like, oh my gosh, you could eat me, right? And the roar itself is scary. And so I started thinking of it like, well, the Lord gave that lion a roar. And so instead of being afraid of it, it's a sign to me that I'm afraid. So when my mind is going crazy, when I'm thinking about all the ways I could die and how long I have on the planet, that the middle of the night fears, you have, I started going, okay, I hear the roar, and that's a blessing from the Lord, because he's telling me I'm not dead yet. I'm not devoured yet. The lion's not eating me, but he's right here. So instead of hiding and cowering, I would just, hey, you have no authority over me in Jesus' name, and I will not be, I will not bow down to your tactics. And then if I couldn't get it together myself, I would wake Danny up and say, hey, I need some help, or I'm calling a friend, and someone partner with me, and letting people in, because the enemy wants us to be by ourselves. He wants us to be isolated. He wants us to be, and if I find myself looping in my fears, like I'm just, they're not going away, I'm just looping in them, then I kind of like need to reach out and call a friend and say, I need some help, because I'm not able to get rid of it all myself. And so I think fear was a big thing I learned about, and what it is and what it isn't, and what it means and what it doesn't mean. Just because I've thought of every worst case scenario doesn't mean it's actually going to happen.
Right,
to me.
right.
And I call it the 3 a.m. courage, because when you're by yourself and it's quiet and it's dark, and you wake up and you can't go back to sleep, and I'm not thinking about anything good, I need to find a special kind of courage.
Yeah.
And it feels almost like you're on the enemy line. You're up there with the army, and you can see the enemy across the ridge. What are you going to do? Do I run back and hide in my tent? Do I get on my horse and run away and let everybody else handle it? It's just like, no, I need to gear up. And so I just started to learn that if I hear that roar and I feel afraid, I got to step up and lean in instead of running away.
That's so good.
Sheri,
So
when
good.
you got the news, I remember hearing about it, obviously, as a close friend, but you really chose to not just share the news with everyone on social media immediately and kind of like spread the word, but you were very intentional about who you told, and just there was a intentionality for protecting your own heart and spirit and mind and everything going through this process. And I just want to know kind of what your mindset was in doing that, and how that helped you process and also kind of go through this really hard journey.
The beginning of the story is my mom died of cancer when I was 38 years old. So she had colon cancer, and they're not related, but I still went through that with her as an adult.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Benny, my good friend Benny, had just passed away. So I found out I had cancer when Benny was still alive, and her and I would text often. And because I was her friend on like social media, people could get to me then, they couldn't get to her. So my inbox, no one knows I have cancer, but my inbox is filling up with people giving their suggestions on what she should read, what she should eat, what she should watch. I'm going to send a prayer cloth from Israel. And I was dealing with all those people just like, hey, thank you. I'm not going to send it to her. They have lots of people in their life. So I kind of knew that was waiting for me as soon as I made this announcement. And I'm like, I'm not ready. And people are good intentioned. I know they have good intentions, but my identity is not rooted in cancer. That's not who I am. And so for me to feel powerful in this process is like, my identity is in Christ. I have the authority. I can drink poison and tread on serpents. That's my identity.
Yeah.
Not because something I did, but because of what the Lord did for me. And what happens when you tell people, dear friends, like you tell a dear friend that you're sick, they are trying to help you. And sometimes the help would look like, oh my gosh, my aunt died of cancer. She found out and she only lived 6 months. Well, I'm just like, that's not helping me.
Thank you very much.
And I know that it would bring up stuff in people. Just saying that word, they're like regurgitating what they went through, and they don't want that to be happening for you, and they have lots of sympathy. But what happens is if you're, I tell SeaJay that something's wrong, And now she's upset. Now I have to deal with SeaJay being upset.
Right.
Yes.
And I just don't have the emotional energy to help SeaJay in this moment in my life.
Yes.
So I was very careful about who I told, because I don't want to have to spend a lot of emotional energy, because, stress is bad for me.
Yeah.
I know it is. So Danny did not keep the secret as well as me. It was really hard for him when people would say, "How's Sheri?"
Yeah.
And he feels like he's lying by not telling them. And especially like good friends. I remember one time he was up in Reading and he was at some kind of staff meeting, and my phone just starts going off. All these people, texting me, "I'm so sorry, we're praying for you." And I was like, Danny Silk?
What did you do?
And we would argue about it, and I would say, when people ask me how you're doing, I don't start telling them, he has back pain and he has issues with it. He had gout one time.
It's true.
I don't need you to launch into my medical history.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
I think Banning would be the same way. Absolutely. Yeah.
And then he went to a funeral of a really dear friend of ours. And normally I would be at those things, but I just couldn't go. And he told a bunch of people at that event as well. They're just blowing up. I was like, honey. But not everyone knows this, but I had surgery in July, right after Benny passed. And so I've got a wig on from the prior chemo, and I still have drainage bulbs hanging off my body.
Oh my gosh.
And I went to my friend's funeral, Benny's funeral.
Oh my gosh.
And I stuffed the drainage bulbs up in my bra so I would look like I had a breast, because I didn't have one on the right side.
Oh my gosh.
And I put my wig on, and I just went there and smiled and didn't tell anyone. People were like, "I love your hair." I'm like, "Thank you." I got it, so it's mine. Right?
Absolutely.
Because I didn't want her memorial service to be about me or cancer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't want people thinking, "Oh no, we're going to have to go through this again with Sheri," or whatever. And it was just a way for me to set boundaries with people.
Yeah.
Until I was ready. And then pretty soon I had to just tell everybody.
The way you bring it on social media, you don't bring it as an option of discussion for how it's going to go.
Yes.
Which I like. When you say it, it's like, this is what I'm doing, and it feels definitive, and it's going to end good.
Yes. You keep your power. Like, it's not a powerless thing where it's like, it feels like you've got your power and your boundaries, and you're pretty confident in who you are in the process, and you're not looking to find out who you are through the process with other people's opinions, which is really nice. It's amazing to watch someone who is already so strong go through something like this and see your strength in the middle of it, because you just wonder, like, this would take anyone out. And so it's amazing to see, obviously you've had good days and bad days, but it's amazing to see you walk through it and the lessons that you're learning in the process. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, none of us control the end of our story.
Yeah.
I mean, I would preach against that actually sometimes. I do think we can take circumstances in our life and turn them around for good. So I feel like we can change the end of our story in a lot of ways. But I don't know how my end day will come. None of us know.
Right.
And so I think just, kind of like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. God will deliver us. But even if he doesn't,
Right.
Yeah.
I'll serve him. And he was with them in that fire, So, I do have, honestly, good days and bad days. I have days where I just can't get above it. Or I got news, or I have a pending test, I have to deal with it still, but I just refuse to sit there. Yeah. I gotta get out as fast as I can, get back to feeling powerful.
Yeah. Sheri, what has actually been helpful for you from a perspective of friends and people like us? Like, what actually does encourage you, and so that we can know, like if we, walk with people in our lives that, have this, how, because I think many people feel we don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And then you'd say something and it's not good. It doesn't land. But what is encouraging? How can we do this better?
Yeah, I think what helps is, or maybe a guideline would be, if you don't have a personal relationship with that person, then I would be praying from afar.
Yeah.
That's good.
That is good.
Yeah.
Because if Deborah or any of you came to me and said, "How are you doing?" I would be saying, "Hey, this is going on," or whatever. Because you're close enough in my circle that I trust you, I know you, I trust your prayers, all those things. If you get farther out away, there's this natural, but it's kind of like when you're working with people and we say, "Oh my gosh, Susie needs some feedback." Well, we don't all give Susie feedback.
Right.
Yeah.
The person that's closest to Susie is going to give Susie the feedback, because there's a relational bridge that's strong enough that someone can jump up and down on it to see if it can handle the weight. Not some complete stranger. We're not going to hire someone to tell Susie that her breath stinks at work or something.
Yeah.
It's close. So I think that's a guideline. Obviously, rattling off everyone that that's ever died of cancer is a really bad idea. Just hold that energy in.
Yes, please.
My mom passed. It's like there's a girl that's pregnant and we have a baby shower for her, and everyone tells their birth stories that were tragic birth stories.
Yes, always.
This poor little young lady sitting there like, "Oh my gosh, I want an epidural. Give me drugs right now."
Yes.
It doesn't have to be like that, but when someone's in a situation that feels familiar, it rushes in all this these experiences, and just keep them to yourself. I'll pray for you. I'm praying for you. As far as advice, I think at first it was overwhelming with even, Google is not always your friend, but you're in there like, "Oh my gosh, and you get information, you think you're going to die of some African disease, even though you've never been there. So I started thinking, okay, I will only explore what I have peace about. Mm-hmm. So if, let's say, Erika called me and said, I read this article about people that take black seed oil for cancer. And I trust Erika. So I'm like, oh, that's very interesting because she cares about me and she's close to me. Right. And then maybe a week or so later, SeaJay said, hey, I know this gal that's dealing with cancer and she takes black seed oil. Mm-hmm. I'd be like, huh. So that's two of my close friends. Right. Two people that I trust. Mm-hmm. And so I'm following the Holy Spirit's lead on those things. Like, okay, I'm now feel equipped to go try and see what they say about black seed oil and cancer. But if you're just a random person, I just kind of shelf it until I get some kind of peace around it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I already take maybe 40 pills a day.
Wow.
All right.
Of supplements or medication or whatever. And so to add to that, I have to know it's what I should be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So advice is great, but I would say the same thing. Make sure you're close enough.
Yeah.
Like in Benny's case, because of Bill and Benny, she doesn't need your particular doctor. Benny has a truckload of friends that have doctors.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so again, it's all well-meaning.
Yes.
But sometimes not very helpful.
Yep.
Yes. I remember after you were diagnosed and you'd walked through it for a while, there's a lady in our church who I love that got a diagnosis, and I just didn't know, like that overwhelming her not knowing what to do. And so I came to you first, like, hey, are you willing to to talk to somebody about this? Or is this just, no, not right now. Like, this is too much. But there is that like comfort that comes when you can see somebody, especially somebody like you. So I can imagine the pressure you feel, because it's not like you show the bad days.
Right.
And you shouldn't. And so you're strong. You encourage yourself with the Lord. But I can imagine too a pull of people like, hey, tell me what to do. Tell me what you're doing. And you were so gracious with her, and that's great. But I can only imagine with your position too, that people would be like, do you have the answer? Have you solved the formula to beat cancer yet, Sheri?
Yes.
It's true.
Well, you can ask my family how strong I feel around them, or show them weakness. I was probably on the phone an hour and a half yesterday with a family that's dealing with a cancer diagnosis.
Wow.
I've had Zoom calls with mothers and daughters. I've had conversations. I get phone calls. Because you're close to me again, I'll be like, yes, I'll try and tell them. But I also know I still am in the middle of my journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also know that I'm not a medical professional. So
Yes.
I can only tell you what I've done and why I've done it. When you first get a diagnosis, it's just loud noise of fear. It's just overwhelming. And so when I get in that situation with people where I'm through the initial crazy that happens, and I don't mind sitting with you to encourage you to get out of there as fast as you can. And these are some things that help me feel more powerful in the process. I love doing that. I've never done it publicly, like let's talk on Facebook or something.
Right.
Or like a Instagram stuff. But I have done it multiple times with people that have my phone number that would call me and say, would you meet with my mom or whatever?
Right.
What I love that you're talking about is, each of us go through seasons of hardship and darkness. It talks about in the Bible that we'll all walk through the valley of the shadow of death at times, and things that will come at us. And what you're saying is that even in the midst of whatever comes at us, we're called to walk in our peace, and we're called to that God's going to walk us through it, and he's going to direct us, and it's actually going to build our faith, and he's going to walk hand in hand, and we're going to walk through faith in the peace of God to what's next. So it's like this sense of you're going to get out of the fear, right? Like that fear that you're having, and you're going to go, okay, the fear, which is the enemy's author of confusion. We're going to get rid of the confusion. We're going to get rid of the fear. When the fear comes, we're going to walk in peace, the peace that God's the Prince of Peace. And then I'm going to walk in your peace through this process. And what I love what you're saying is that that's where you get your power back, is like, I'm walking with the all-powerful one, and I'm going to just walk hand in hand every single day through it. And as I hear you talk, I know you may not feel this at times, but I just have this overwhelming sense as you talk, just how much at peace you are through this process. It's like, I want to see you get your power back. And that feels so, I don't know, it feels like so shallow compared to God, and it doesn't feel, because your power compared to God's power is so small compared to God's power. But with God's power, it's so mighty. But I just feel like, I love that you're talking about this journey where God tells you something, then you knock on that door, then you walk through that door, and then God brings something else in. And this beautiful journey you're on, it may not be it may not feel like a beautiful journey, but it is a journey God has you on. Yeah. And it's just it's not one that we'd want to walk in, but man, it is something that's beautiful to watch you walk through and walk out the other side, because I do believe you will walk out the other side of this. And that there's just testimony in that. But what's amazing is, I think, to look at personality, I think there would be times when, if anyone had, just in life and all that you went through, because you've talked about you losing one of your best buds to it and all that, if anyone wanted to lay down and cry and say, peace, I'm out, like, I'm done, you would be one. Like, I'm out.
Yeah.
And we'd be like, okay, good. Like, she's out. Let's let her check out a life for the next year. That's fine. But you haven't. You've stayed engaged. You've stayed present. You've stayed involved. You are, on staff of the church, and you are on staff at the ministry, and all the things that you do. And how, has that helped you in staying busy and not just sitting in the fear?
I think I got through the initial yuck of all of it, and Banning called me and said, "Are you bored yet?" And I'm like, I am kind of bored, but my health is really much a part-time job to stay on top of all the things I'm doing. So regulating work and all that, but it is absolutely good for me to have something to do. When you were talking about power of yourself over power with the Lord, I think what I know to be true is that when someone is afraid, they are not themselves. For example,
wow.
If you're swimming with a really good friend and they all of a sudden think they're drowning, they will crawl up on your head to get their next breath of air. Now, in regular life, your friend would not do that. They would be giving you CPR. They would be saving you. But when we are petrified, we are not ourselves.
Yeah.
And so knowing that, I have to say, well, it's not my power, but it's your power, Lord. That is my identity.
That's
my
good.
power doesn't come from, sure, I feel like he's partnering with me in this journey and gives me ideas and sends people, and I have lots of prayer. But I'm very much aware that my identity is in Christ, and I can take authority over situations. And that gives me power based off of who he is, not what I can do.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about cancer, but let's say I have a teenager out of control. Let's say I lost my business. Let's say, whatever it is, fear is so powerful.
Right.
It can be just consuming. And you have to realize I am not myself, which means I've left my identity in Christ and I am trying to handle everything.
Yep.
I called it my orphan spirit comes back.
Wow.
It's my job to rescue myself. It's my job to protect myself. It's my job. It's up to me. It's up to me. Oh, how exhausting is that?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not up to me. I'll do all I can as a partner, but it's not up to me. It's everything that the Lord gives me and wants me to partner with. And again, I have my days.
Yeah.
Danny calls it Sheri's courage face or whatever. Sheri seems to be doing really good. Well, that's Sheri's courage face.
As we're talking about this, I think just like what you're saying, like we all have our things that we walk through, losing jobs that you have to strengthen yourself in the Lord, all that stuff. But you being willing to talk to people in the midst of like that swirl, like you talked about. I remember, for me, when anxiety was kicked up and Chris Valentin was able to just share that he knew what it felt like in that moment. And then I'm looking at somebody who's beyond it, so it's just such a powerful thing when we can look at people, even when the victory isn't fully won, like you don't know how you're going to make your next dollar, but you're looking at somebody who went through financial disaster and they're still there carrying hope, and they can look at you and go, hey, look at where I'm at. I've got peace. Take a little bit of peace from me. You're going to make it. I think it's so powerful when we can come out of those crippling moments and bring our strength or bring our victory, even when it's not fully there. I think so many of us think I can't talk on it yet until I've won it all.
Right.
When you were talking, Deborah, I was thinking about you too, Sheri, as you were walking through it, and then you came back and you're on staff with us. And my thought was always like, she lives like somebody who believes she has a future. And I'm like, and I would imagine that takes a daily, I'm getting up and I'm choosing, like I have a future, because I can just imagine the overwhelming fear. And like, I sometimes feel like that just going to a normal mammogram. Like the next 2 days while I'm waiting, I'm like, I find myself giggling at something. I'm like, wait, is this maybe the last time? Like the stupidest thoughts, come, and you're like, what do I have to live for, really?
And the enemy just tries to take you out.
Yeah, and the hard work, but, and then I'm like, no, I have a future, I have, and watching you, to me, you live like you have a future. You show up every day.
Yes.
Like that, and it's just
whether it's your courage face,
whatever it
or
is.
not.
Yes. I love that, and I mean, isn't that what we need to do any day? Like good, bad days. Like I am getting up because I do have a future, because not of me, because of God.
Yeah, because of the promise He said.
Yes, these promises, and
And the testimony that you were talking about, the testimony of the Lord encourages you, like SeaJay was talking about, because we know He works all things for the good. He doesn't always work them out like we want or we think He should.
Yes.
But He is true and faithful.
Yes.
And when you talk to someone that maybe lost their business or whatever, and they're on the other side of it, they learn some things.
Through
Through their pain, through their process.
Yeah.
And that gives them more confidence going forward. Like if you hit another financial bump, you're like, hey, he worked out the last one.
Yes. So true. So
it's
true.
powerful.
Yeah.
That's why we need each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, Sheri, we were, when we were talking about this, because I think there's so many people that are walking through this, and so many people that do it alone because they're scared to open up for right reasons. I mean, people with all of our good intentions can still be idiots. But just to hear, for you to be willing to continue to share in the midst of your process, how you fight, that it isn't a win every day, that some days are harder than others, but you know that you know who He says you are, what He says about you. It's just powerful. It's so encouraging. I think, especially if you're a young person listening, like I remember the shock of, wait, hard things can still happen. Like you just kind of feel like you got it all together at some stage of life. And then the reality that hard things could happen. But so hearing people be willing to share in the midst of the journey how to walk through hard things is so powerful, so encouraging. I remember that was going through some of the losses in my life. I'd only heard the victories. And then as I was drowning in the midst of it, I was like, can somebody throw me a life raft? Because I don't know. I know what it's supposed to look like at the end, but what does it look like in the middle? Like the middle feels so scary. I don't know what to do. I can't put on my courage face today. I'm literally drowning in the middle of the ocean. I just need something to float on. So you being willing to say, hey, I'm in the middle. Here's my hope. I'm going to end good. But this is, I'm not there yet.
Yeah, we call it the messy middle. And really, we have a choice, right, in how we want to come out the other end.
Yeah.
Because not everyone comes out great. You can come out bitter, angry. You can come out not learning the lessons you're supposed to. So you showing up and saying, I'm going to learn. I'm going to not let fear overwhelm me and take me out. I'm going to grow from it. I'm not going to let the 3 a.m. take me out, but I'm going to learn and grow and stand up and believe God for my future. And all the things that you're going through is not just for you, it's for your daughter and your granddaughters, and there's generations that will learn from you because of what you're plowing through in this season. And so it is generational what you're dealing with for the days to come. And so I just think I don't think everyone goes through trials and they come out better on the other side. I think it is a choice. And I watch you show up and make the choice to learn the lesson and to obey the Holy Spirit and to walk through it. And not always in grace. None of us, always walk in grace. But if you keep showing up, that's all that matters. It's like, I'm going to keep showing up. I'm going to keep being here. I'm not going to run away and hide or get bitter or get angry or whatever. Your heart is still tender towards God. You're still saying, I'm here. And it's just, God is going to make beautiful things out of it.
Yeah.
So really, really awesome. It's wonderful to see.
We read scripture about Jesus telling the disciples, I want you to drink my blood and eat my flesh. And they're like, that's weird. I'm still right here. It's like they didn't know what to do with that. I don't know what to do with all of that. But my fight was never with the Lord because He's good. And I didn't mess with that. But my fight is with my emotions and my mindset, my feelings. And so this is the battle is with that, not with the Lord.
Oof. Yes.
When my mom died of cancer, we were pastoring in Weaverville, and we had a revival church where we were praying for people to get healed and all that going on all the time. And I didn't want to show up. This is my experience with my mom. You know, I just wasn't ready to talk to people about it. And I felt like my faith was, questionable. Do I have faith to pray for someone? I remember whenever there was a meeting, if you're a Star Wars fan, there's this moment where Luke is in the spaceship that's going toward the Death Star, and Darth Vader, the enemy of darkness, could feel his presence. And Luke says, I've jeopardized the mission. I shouldn't have come. And that's kind of how I felt at the prayer meeting. Sometimes, like, I shouldn't be here. Should not be the one. And even in those moments, I would just try and fight through it, like show up anyway, pray anyway. God can use a donkey. He can certainly use me,
Yes, that's so good. Oh, thank you so much, Sheri. I hope anybody who's walking through this, you're encouraged, that you have hope. Yeah, we're for you. You're surrounded by people that are praying and believing all the promises God has over your life. So thank you for joining us on Authentic You, Sheri.
Thanks for having me.
We're signing off. I think this is our last episode of our season 1. So we hope you enjoyed.
Hi, ladies. It's Deborah Giles here. I want to remind you about our Jesus Culture School of Leadership. If you are looking for a place to grow in your relational health, grow as a leader, grow in ministry, grow in worship, we have lots of things available for you. So go ahead and take a look online, and applications are available now.